There are moments in nature that only reveal themselves when the world grows quieter. Not louder, not faster, but softer. Somewhere in Kenya, as evening light thins and the sky leans gently toward night, the lakes begin to change color. At first, it is barely noticeable, a faint blush along the water's edge. Then slowly, as if the land itself is exhaling, the surface becomes pink. Not the sharp pink of paint or flowers, but a calm, living pink, made of feathers, reflections, and movement so unhurried, it almost feels still. This is where our story begins. Welcome to Sleepy Nature Sleep, where the wild grows soft and curiosity becomes calm. Tonight, let your thoughts follow the rhythm of the earth, your breathing settle like evening wind, and your mind wander gently through the quiet wild. As you settle in, imagine standing at the edge of a wide Kenyan lake, Lake Nakuru, Lake Bogoria, or Lake Elmenteta. The air is cool now. The sun has lowered its voice. All around you, thousands upon thousands of flamingos stand together, not crowded, not restless, but calm. A peaceful pink gathering that seems to know there is nowhere else it needs to be. These flamingos are migrating, yes, but not in the way migration is often told. There's no urgency here, no dramatic rush across continents. Instead, there is patience, a gentle drifting between lakes, a quiet understanding between water, algae, wind, and wings. As you listen, you don't need to remember facts or follow timelines. There is nothing to solve, nothing to prepare for. This is a story meant to unfold slowly, like feathers settling after a stretch. If you are new here, you are warmly welcome. And if you've been with us before, thank you for returning to the quiet. You are part of a small community of listeners who come not to be startled awake by nature, but to be gently carried into rest by it. If you find comfort here, you may choose to stay connected, to return on other nights when sleep feels distant. And if you wish to support this space, simply being here, listening and resting is already enough. Tonight, we will follow the flamingos through their season of movement without hurry. We will notice how they gather, how they listen to water chemistry and wind direction, how a landscape remembers them, and how they remember the landscape in return. But for now, there's no need to follow them anywhere. Just breathe in slowly and out gently. Let the image of pink water soften your thoughts. Let the quiet crowd of flamingos hold the edges of your attention so your mind can rest safely in the center. As the lake darkens and the birds grow still, our journey begins, not with flight, but with calm. And in the next part, we will ask a simple question beneath the open sky, one that the flamingos seem to answer without words. When you're ready, just rest here. There is a kind of question that does not ask for an answer. It does not hurry the mind. It simply rests there, like a stone warmed by the sun, inviting quiet attention. As the evening settles over Kenya's lakes, such a question drifts gently into view. What guides a creature when there is no rush to arrive? Not urgency, not pressure, but something slower, older, and almost invisible. Imagine standing once more at the water's edge. The sky above you is wide and patient, brushed with soft blues and fading silver. The lake stretches out calmly, shallow and reflective, holding the last light of day. In the distance, flamingos stand together in pale clusters of pink, their shapes softened by air and distance. They are in the middle of a migration season, and yet nothing about this moment feels like movement in the way we often imagine it. No sudden departures, no sharp turns, no restless pacing. Instead, there is waiting, standing, feeding, resting, a quiet agreement between bird and place. So the question returns gently. What tells them when to stay and when to drift onward? The flamingos do not carry maps. They do not count days or measure miles. They listen instead to the taste of the water, to the richness of the algae, to the depth beneath their feet. Their guidance comes from within the landscape itself, offered softly, like a suggestion rather than a command. And perhaps this is why their gatherings feel so calm. Nothing is forced. As you breathe in slowly, imagine that same ease entering your body. There is nothing you need to decide right now. No direction you must choose. Like the flamingos, you are allowed to pause at the edge of the lake and simply notice what feels supportive. Notice the temperature of the air in your imagination, cool but gentle. Notice the way the water barely ripples, responding only to light wind. The flamingos shift their weight from one leg to the other, not to go anywhere, but to stay comfortable. Their stillness is not emptiness. It is awareness without effort. The question beneath the open sky becomes quieter now, less like words and more like a feeling, a sense that movement does not always mean leaving. Sometimes it means adjusting. Sometimes it means resting long enough for the next step to reveal itself naturally. If thoughts begin to wander, let them wander like reflections on the lake, appearing, softening, fading. There is no need to hold them. The flamingos remain, calm, pink against muted water, guided not by clocks, but by balance. As night approaches, the question does not demand closure. It stays open, wide and gentle, like the sky itself. And in that openness, there is room to rest. In the next part, we will look more closely at the landscape that holds this quiet gathering, the water, the minerals, the light, and how the land prepares itself to welcome such a peaceful crowd. For now, allow the question to dissolve into the air. Let your breathing slow. Let the lake hold the answer for you, and stay here, beneath the open sky, where nothing needs to be solved. Before the flamingos gather, before the water turns softly pink, there's the landscape itself, quiet, patient, and already waiting. Imagine the land in the moments just before evening fully arrives. The sun lowers its brightness, not suddenly, but gradually, as if dimming a lamp. The sky stretches wide above Kenya's Great Rift Valley, layered with gentle blues, pale grays, and the faintest trace of silver. Nothing here feels sharp. Even the horizon seems to breathe. Below that open sky lie the soda lakes, Lake Nakuru, Lake Bogoria, Lake Elementaita, shallow bodies of water shaped by time, minerals, and slow geological rhythms. Their surfaces are smooth and reflective, like polished stone. In places, the water barely moves at all, holding the sky as clearly as a mirror. This landscape does not announce itself loudly. It reveals itself through subtle details. The ground near the shore is pale and textured, dusted with salt and minerals left behind as water slowly recedes and returns. Each step would make a soft sound here, though no one is stepping now. The air carries a faint mineral scent, clean and dry, mixed with the quiet freshness of cooling water. As you picture this place, allow your attention to widen. There is no single point to focus on. The calm comes from seeing the whole, sky, lake, shoreline, existing together without hurry. The water's chemistry is part of this calm. Rich in minerals and microscopic life, it creates conditions that invite algae to bloom gently beneath the surface. This is not something visible at first glance. It is something the lake holds quietly, preparing nourishment without display. Light touches the water differently here. As the sun lowers, reflections soften. Brightness becomes glow. Colors lose their edges. The lake begins to feel less like a surface and more like a space, open, receptive, calm. Farther out, the shapes of flamingos begin to appear, though they do not yet demand attention. At this distance, they are simply part of the scenery, small pink marks against pale water, blending rather than standing apart. They seem to belong to the lake as naturally as reflections or ripples. This is the setting that welcomes them, not a stage built for spectacle, but a quiet environment shaped by balance, a place where nothing competes for attention, where water, sky, and land settle into agreement. As you breathe, imagine standing here without expectation. You are not waiting for something to happen. You are simply present. The calm of the landscape does not require understanding. It offers rest through simplicity. The flamingos will come closer later. Their movements will become clearer. But for now, the land itself holds the story. It sets the tone. It teaches stillness before introducing life. Notice how your thoughts respond to this imagined place. They may slow without instruction. They may soften, just as the light does. There is no need to guide them. The pink landscape before us is already complete, even before the birds fully arrive. It does not rush to fill space. It trusts that what belongs here will come in its own time. And in the next part, we will gently explore how this water begins to change, how unseen life quietly turns the lake pink, preparing the way for the peaceful crowd to gather. For now, remain with the landscape. Let it hold you. The pink of the lake does not arrive all at once. It is not painted across the water. It grows quietly, layer by layer, almost unnoticed. Beneath the calm surface of Kenya's soda lakes, life moves at a scale too small to hurry. Microscopic algae drift gently through mineral-rich water, warmed by sunlight during the day and cooled again as evening settles. They do not rush. They do not spread suddenly. They simply exist, responding to light, warmth, and balance. As you imagine the lake now, picture its shallow depth. The water is not deep here. Light reaches easily to the bottom, touching every suspended particle. This allows the algae to grow slowly, comfortably, turning sunlight into nourishment without effort. The minerals dissolved in the water, salts carried upward from the earth below, create a unique softness in color. These lakes are alkaline, but nothing about them feels harsh. Instead, the chemistry forms a gentle foundation, a quiet invitation for life that thrives in stillness. The algae themselves carry warm pigments, soft reds and pinks, that blend into the water as they multiply. Not dramatically, not loudly, just enough to shift the tone of the lake, as if the water were blushing. When flamingos step into this shallow world, their movements barely disturb it. Long legs move slowly through the water, lifting and settling with care. Each step sends out small ripples that widen and fade, leaving the surface calm once again. As flamingos feed, they stir the water gently, filtering algae with curved bills designed for patience. The lake responds by offering color. The more the birds feed, the more the pink deepens, not from motion, but from continuity. This exchange happens without awareness. The algae do not know they are coloring a landscape. The flamingos do not intend to paint the water. Yet together, through repetition and calm presence, the lake transforms. Take a slow breath here. This pink is not decoration. It is evidence of harmony, a sign that conditions are just right, that nothing is missing and nothing is excessive. In the quiet of evening, the color becomes softer still. As light fades, the bright pink settles into muted rose, then into pale lavender, then into something almost silver. The lake does not cling to brightness. It allows change. And as you listen, perhaps you notice something familiar. How often change arrives not through effort, but through consistency, through small, repeated moments that slowly reshape the whole. The lake does not hurry to become pink. It becomes pink by remaining itself. As night approaches, reflections grow faint. Flamingos stand quietly, their feathers echoing the color beneath them. Water and bird begin to mirror one another. The boundary between them softens. If your thoughts wander now, let them drift like algae in sunlight, floating, unbothered, unobserved. There is no need to hold on to them. They can settle when they are ready. In the next part, we will look more closely at the flamingos themselves, the gentle design of their bodies, shaped not for speed or struggle, but for balance and ease within this quiet world. For now, remain with the lake. Let the pink rest gently around you. When you look at a flamingo, there is nothing hurried in its shape. Everything about its body seems arranged for calm. The long legs rise slowly from the water, slender and steady, as if they were meant to belong there. They do not rush to lift. They do not stamp or splash. They simply stand, allowing the lake to support them. One leg often rests, folded gently beneath the body, not as a sign of effort, but of balance easily found. Above those legs, the body is light, almost floating, covered in feathers that catch and soften the air. The pink of those feathers is not loud. It is the kind of color that feels warmed by distance, like something seen through evening light rather than direct sun. The neck curves upward in a long, relaxed line. It does not strain. It bends easily, forming gentle shapes that feel more like slow handwriting than sharp angles. When a flamingo lowers its head to feed, the movement is unhurried, as though the bird has all the time it needs. And the bill, curved, specialized, and patient, is shaped not for grasping or tearing, but for filtering. When the flamingo feeds, it turns its head upside down, letting water pass through slowly. Tiny movements, repeated again and again, bring nourishment without force. There is no urgency in this design. Every feature seems to say the same quiet thing. There is enough time, enough water, enough space. As you imagine these birds standing together, notice how their forms create rhythm rather than motion. A neck lowers, another lifts. A wing stretches briefly, then folds back into stillness. None of these gestures demand attention. They happen as naturally as breathing. This design allows flamingos to remain present for long periods. They do not need to move constantly to stay comfortable. Their bodies are made for lingering, for standing in shallow water while the day passes slowly into night. The lake mirrors them now, long reflections beneath each bird, softened by ripples that fade almost as soon as they appear. Flamingo and reflection feel connected, like two versions of the same calm shape. As you listen, allow your own body to respond. You may notice a sense of settling, a quiet adjustment. Perhaps your shoulders soften. Perhaps your breath deepens slightly without instruction. There is nothing to copy here, only something to remember. That rest does not always mean lying down. That stillness can be active without being busy. That balance can feel natural when nothing pushes it away. The flamingo's gentle design is not about perfection. It is about fit, how a body meets its environment without resistance, how form and place agree. As darkness continues to gather, the birds remain. They do not prepare dramatically for night. They simply allow it to arrive. Feathers fluff slightly, heads tuck closer. One leg rests more deeply. In the next part, we will observe how these birds move together, not as a crowd rushing forward, but as a shared presence drifting slowly across the water. For now, stay with the image of the flamingos as they are, balanced, unhurried, held easily by the lake. When flamingos move, it is rarely in a way that draws attention. There is no signal to begin, no clear moment when stillness becomes motion. Instead, movement arrives quietly, like a change in air temperature that you only notice after it has already happened. At the edge of the lake, one flamingo takes a slow step forward. The water parts gently around its leg, then settles again. A second bird follows, not because it must, but because the space beside it feels ready. Soon, others shift as well, not in unison, not in a line, but in a loose, unspoken agreement. This is how flamingos move together. There is no rush to go anywhere specific. The flock drifts rather than travels. Some birds remain where they are, feeding calmly. Others wander a short distance, pausing often. The group stretches and reshapes itself, like a soft cloud responding to a light breeze. As you imagine the scene, notice how the water absorbs these movements without disturbance. Each step creates a ripple that widens, fades, and disappears. Nothing lingers too long. The lake seems to welcome motion, then return to stillness as if it had never been interrupted. Flamingos do not migrate in tight formations here. They do not press forward. Their movement is guided by comfort, by where the water feels right beneath their feet, where food is abundant, where the air is calm. This shared pace creates a sense of ease. No bird is left behind. No bird is pulled ahead. Each one moves according to its own rhythm, trusting that the group will remain nearby. There is a quiet confidence in this way of being together. The flamingos do not need to watch one another closely. They feel the presence of the flock through sound, reflection, and subtle shifts in space. A gentle awareness replaces attention. As dusk deepens, movement slows even further. Steps become pauses. Pauses become standing. Standing becomes rest. The flock settles not because it has arrived, but because there is nothing more it needs right now. Take a slow breath as you listen. This kind of movement asks nothing of you. It does not invite excitement. It invites release. The understanding that progress does not always require speed, and togetherness does not require effort. The flamingos demonstrate this without intention. They simply live it. As the light continues to soften, the group gathers loosely again. Pink shapes draw closer, not tightly packed, but comfortably near. Reflections overlap. The boundary between one bird and another becomes less important than the calm they share. If thoughts arise, allow them to move as the flamingos do, slowly, without direction, free to pause and drift away. In the next part, we will explore how flamingos seem to listen to the lake itself, how water, rather than maps or memory, gently guides where they stay and where they wander next. For now, remain with the flock as it moves without hurry. Let their pace become your own. The flamingos do not decide where to go in the way we might imagine deciding. There are no routes planned in advance, no destinations held firmly in mind. Instead, they listen, not with ears alone, but with their entire bodies. As you picture the lake again, imagine the water as something more than a surface. It is a conversation, quiet, ongoing, and patient. The flamingos step into it slowly, feeling the depth beneath their feet, sensing the temperature against their legs, tasting the water as they feed. Each of these sensations carries information, offered gently, without urgency. The water speaks in subtle ways. It tells them when food is plentiful, when algae blooms softly below the surface. It tells them when the balance is right, when minerals and light have settled into a calm agreement. And just as quietly, it tells them when things begin to change, when nourishment thins, when it is time to drift elsewhere. There's no moment of announcement, only a gradual shift in feeling. A place that once felt full begins to feel lighter. The water tastes slightly different. The flamingos respond without discussion. A few step away. Others follow later. Some remain a while longer, lingering in comfort. Movement happens gently, spread across time. As you breathe, allow yourself to imagine listening in this way, not searching for signs, not interpreting signals, but simply noticing what feels supportive. The flamingos trust what they sense. They do not question it. They do not hesitate. Listening does not require effort when the body is allowed to stay calm. The lake, in return, remains open. It does not cling to the birds when they leave. It continues to hold space, knowing the conditions may change again. That water will rise or recede. That life will return when it is ready. This quiet exchange repeats across the landscape. From one lake to another, the flamingos move in response to what they feel, not to what they remember. The present moment guides them more gently than memory ever could. Notice how different this feels from urgency. There is no rush to arrive at the next place. There is only attention to what is happening now. The flamingos are never far from rest because rest is part of how they listen. As night approaches, the water cools. Movements slow further. The lake grows darker, reflecting fewer details, holding more shadow. The flamingos remain, listening, still, standing quietly, balanced, aware. If your thoughts feel busy, you might imagine setting them down beside the lake. Let them rest there. You do not need to follow them anywhere. Listening, like the flamingos practice it, is not about solving. It is about allowing the environment to speak first, about trusting that guidance arrives softly without needing to be chased. In the next part, we will look at how this listening creates harmony within the flock itself, how thousands of birds move together as if they share a single, calm awareness. For now, stay with the water. Let it speak in its own time. From a distance, the flamingos appear as a single shape, a soft band of pink stretched across water and light. Only when you look more closely do you notice the many individuals within it. And yet, even then, the sense of togetherness remains. Each flamingo stands on its own legs, feeds with its own movements, rests in its own quiet way. There is no leader guiding the group, no signal calling them into alignment. Still, the flock moves and settles as if it were one calm body, responding gently to itself. This harmony does not come from control. It comes from awareness. When one bird shifts, the space around it adjusts. When another pauses, that pause is respected. Movements ripple through the group, not as commands, but as invitations, soft suggestions that others may follow or ignore. The lake supports this feeling. Its shallow water allows the flock to spread out comfortably, giving each bird room to breathe, to feed, to rest. Reflections overlap beneath them, blurring boundaries. Pink shapes blend into pink light, and the distinction between one flamingo and the next becomes less important. As evening deepens, the flock's movements slow further. Heads lower and lift in unhurried rhythm. Wings stretch briefly, then fold. A few birds drift closer together, while others remain slightly apart. No space feels wrong. No distance feels too large. This is what shared calm looks like. There is no need to stay alert for danger. No need to compete for position. The flock exists in a state of mutual ease, where awareness replaces effort. As you listen, notice how this sense of collective calm might feel in your own body. There is nothing you need to synchronize with, no one you need to match. And yet, simply by resting here, you may feel connected to the story, to the rhythm of the words, to the quiet unfolding of time. The flamingos seem to understand something simple and deep, that togetherness does not require closeness. It requires consideration, a gentle attention to the presence of others. The air cools slightly now, sounds soften, water grows darker, reflecting less detail. The flock remains steady, held by the lake and by each other's presence. If thoughts arise, let them drift through you as individual birds within the larger scene. Each thought can appear, pause, and pass on without disturbing the whole. Nothing here demands response. As night settles more fully, the flock becomes even quieter, standing, resting, breathing. A crowd that feels like one body, not because it is the same, but because it is at ease. In the next part, we will listen more closely to the sounds that surround this peaceful gathering, the gentle movements, the distant calls, the quiet language of the lake itself. For now, remain with the flock. Let their shared calm hold you, lightly and without effort. As the light continues to soften, the lake begins to speak in quieter ways, not through color or movement, but through sound, or rather, through the gentle absence of it. There is no sharp noise here, no sudden calls, no interruption that asks for attention. Instead, the soundscape settles into something smooth and even, like a steady breath that no longer needs to be noticed to be felt. Imagine standing near the water now. The air has cooled just enough to feel refreshing. The surface of the lake is mostly still, disturbed only by the slow steps of flamingos shifting their weight or taking a careful step forward. Each movement creates a soft splash, followed by a widening circle that fades before it reaches anything else. These sounds do not linger. They arrive and dissolve. Somewhere farther out, a wing stretches briefly. Feathers brush against air, producing a faint, whispering sound, more like fabric moving than a bird in motion. It is the kind of sound that blends easily into the background, never asking to be named. The flamingos themselves are quiet now. Earlier in the day, there may have been low calls, short, gentle sounds exchanged without urgency. But as evening settles, even those become rare. Communication is no longer needed. The flock already knows how to be here. What remains are the subtle layers beneath. The wind moves lightly across the lake, not strong enough to create waves, only enough to shift the surface into soft textures. It carries distant sounds, perhaps the faint call of another bird far away, or the muted hush of grasses along the shore. These sounds are not clear. They are softened by distance and darkness, becoming more like suggestions than signals. As you listen, you may notice how your own awareness begins to widen. When sound is gentle, there is no single point to focus on. Attention spreads, relaxes, and rests. The lake holds this quiet easily. Even the silence here is not empty. It is full of small, steady rhythms, water cooling, air moving, bodies breathing. The flamingos stand calmly, balanced and still, contributing to the soundscape simply by being present. If thoughts appear now, let them be like distant sounds across the water. You do not need to follow them. You can notice them briefly, then allow them to fade into the background, just as the lake does. There is nothing to listen for, nothing to anticipate. The resting lake does not change suddenly. It deepens gradually, becoming darker, quieter, more even. The sounds that remain are those that support rest rather than interrupt it. As night approaches, the boundary between sound and silence softens. One blends gently into the other. The lake does not mind which is which. In the next part, we will observe how the flamingos feed during these calm hours, how repetition and patience become a form of quiet meditation. For now, remain with the sounds as they are. Let them arrive without effort. Let them fade when they are ready, and allow the resting lake to hold the quiet for you. When the flamingos feed, it does not look like searching. It looks like settling. They step slowly into the shallow water, lowering their heads with unhurried grace. Necks curve downward, forming gentle arcs, and then, almost playfully, their heads turn upside down. In this position, they remain still for a long moment, as if listening through the water rather than moving through it. Feeding begins without effort. The flamingo's bill opens slightly, allowing water to pass through while tiny movements filter nourishment from what the lake quietly offers. There is no grabbing, no chasing, just a slow, steady rhythm repeated again and again. Water in, water out, pause, repeat. This repetition does not signal boredom, it signals comfort. The body knows what to do, and the mind, if we can imagine such a thing, has nothing to manage. Around them, Other flamingos do the same, heads lower and rise at different times, creating a soft pattern across the lake. From a distance, it looks almost like the water itself is breathing, pink shapes dipping and lifting in a rhythm that feels soothing rather than busy. As you picture this scene, allow your own breath to slow. There's no need to match anything exactly. Simply notice how repetition can calm without becoming dull. The flamingos feed for long stretches, sometimes barely shifting their position. A small step forward, a slight turn, then stillness again. The lake supports this quiet focus, offering nourishment without resistance. Even the sounds remain gentle. Soft splashes accompany each dip of the bill. Water moves lightly, then settles. Nothing accumulates, nothing interrupts. This way of feeding becomes a kind of meditation, not because it is intended to be, but because it invites presence without demand. Attention narrows to sensation, taste, balance, temperature, and beyond that, there is space. As evening deepens, the light fades further. Colors soften, pink reflections blur into gray-blue water. Yet the flamingos continue, unbothered by the change. Their practice does not depend on brightness. It depends on familiarity. If thoughts drift now, let them move as the water does through the bill, passing through gently, leaving only what is useful behind. You do not need to hold on to them. They can come and go without effort. There is something reassuring in watching a creature feed without urgency. It reminds us that not every moment must lead somewhere else. That nourishment can arrive quietly, through patience rather than pursuit. Eventually, feeding slows, heads lift and remain upright for longer stretches. Bodies grow still again. The repetition eases into rest without a clear ending. Nothing signals that the moment is complete. It simply becomes quieter. In the next part, we will reflect on how stillness itself can also be a form of movement. How waiting, standing, and pausing carry meaning in the rhythm of migration. For now, stay with the image of the flamingos feeding calmly in dimming light. Let the rhythm continue softly and allow yourself to rest within it. As the feeding slows and the lake grows quieter, the flamingos return to stillness. But this stillness is not an ending. It is simply another way of moving. They stand together now, long legs resting in shallow water, bodies balanced with ease. Some tuck their heads gently back along their feathers. Others remain upright, eyes half closed, aware without watching. Nothing about them suggests waiting for something to happen. They are already where they need to be. From a distance, the flock appears almost motionless. Yet if you look gently, without focusing too hard, you begin to notice the smallest changes. A feather shifts with the breeze. A leg adjusts slightly. A reflection ripples, then smooths itself again. Movement continues, but it has become quiet enough to blend into rest. This is a kind of motion that does not take energy away. It preserves it. The flamingos understand this without needing to think about it. Their bodies are designed to hold balance without strain, to remain present without effort. Migration in this light feels less like traveling and more like listening over time. There are long pauses between journeys, hours, days, sometimes longer. During these pauses, nothing is wasted. Stillness becomes a necessary part of movement itself, allowing the birds to remain aligned with the lake, the light, the rhythm of the day. As you listen, notice how different this feels from how stillness is often described. It is not empty. It is full of subtle adjustments, gentle awareness, and quiet readiness. The lake supports this state easily. Its surface reflects the standing birds, doubling their presence. Flamingo and reflection mirror one another, reinforcing the sense that nothing is separate here. Movement and rest, water and body, presence and pause. If your own body feels heavy or tired, allow that feeling to settle without resistance. There is no need to change it. Like the flamingos, you can remain balanced without trying. Breathing becomes slower now, not because it must, but because there is no reason to hurry. The air cools slightly and the night deepens around the flock. Sounds soften even further, blending into a steady hush. Stillness holds, and within it, the flamingos remain aware, sensing changes in temperature, subtle shifts in the water, the presence of one another nearby. This awareness does not pull them forward. It keeps them gently anchored where they are. There is comfort in knowing that progress does not always look like motion. Sometimes it looks like standing quietly until the next step reveals itself naturally. As the sky darkens, stars begin to appear faintly above the lake. The flamingos do not look up. They do not need to. Their world is complete where they stand. In the next part, we will return to the details of the lake itself, how taste, depth, and texture guide the flamingos even when they seem still. For now, remain with this moment. Let stillness be enough. Even in stillness, the lake continues to speak, not through sound or movement, but through taste. For the flamingos, taste is not a sudden sensation. It is a quiet, ongoing awareness that settles gently along the curve of the bill. As they stand in shallow water, heads lowered just enough, they sense subtle differences, tiny changes in what the lake carries within it. The water here is rich, not in obvious ways, but in small, suspended life. Algae drift slowly, warmed by sunlight earlier in the day and now cooling as evening deepens. Minerals dissolve softly, shaping the lake's character without announcing themselves. Together, these elements create a flavor the flamingos recognize without thought. When a flamingo feeds, it does not rush to gather more. It allows the water to move through the bill at its own pace. Fine structures inside filter gently, separating nourishment from the flow. This happens again and again, unhurried, as if time itself has slowed to match the rhythm. Taste becomes a form of listening. The lake offers information without pressure, a slight richness here, a subtle thinning there, nothing dramatic, just enough to guide small decisions, where to step next, when to pause, when to remain. As you imagine this, picture the water as something soft against the senses. It does not overwhelm. It does not demand attention. It simply communicates quietly, moment by moment. The flamingos respond without effort. They shift a few steps to one side. They linger where the taste feels full. They move on when it begins to fade. No single moment defines the choice. It is the accumulation of gentle impressions over time. This way of knowing feels deeply calm. There is no need to analyze, no need to compare. The body understands what supports it, and that understanding unfolds naturally. As the night continues to settle, feeding becomes less frequent. The taste of the lake remains present. even when the flamingos are no longer filtering water actively. It lingers as a background awareness, like a familiar scent or a remembered warmth. If you find your own thoughts drifting now, allow them to move like the water itself, flowing gently, passing through without leaving a mark, carrying only what feels nourishing. There is no need to label sensations, no need to decide what they mean. Simply noticing is enough. The lake does not insist on being tasted. It offers itself quietly, trusting that those who need it will respond in time. The flamingos accept this offer without expectation, without urgency. In this exchange, nothing is wasted. Nourishment arrives softly. Guidance emerges slowly. Balance is maintained. As the birds return fully to rest, standing calmly in darkening water, the taste of the lake remains part of them. A subtle memory, ready to guide the next movement when the time feels right. In the next part, we will reflect on how this nourishment becomes visible, how the food and water of the lake quietly shape the flamingo's color, turning experience into living memory. For now, remain with the quiet richness of the lake. Let it offer what it will, and rest in the gentle knowing that comes without effort. The color of a flamingo is not chosen, it is remembered. Each shade of pink carried in the feathers is a quiet record of where the bird has been, what the lake has offered, and how patiently nourishment has been received. The color does not arrive quickly. It settles in slowly, shaped by time, repetition, and gentle abundance. As the flamingos stand together in the dimming light, their feathers hold stories that do not need to be told aloud. The lake has written them softly, one meal at a time, one calm day after another. Tiny pigments from algae become part of the bird's body, carried forward without effort, without intention. Nothing is rushed in this process. The pink deepens gradually, almost imperceptibly, until one day it simply feels present. Not bright, not bold, just quietly there, like a memory that has faded into comfort rather than detail. When you look across the lake now, you may notice that no two flamingos are exactly the same color. Some are pale, almost white, touched with blush. Others carry warmer tones, rose, coral, soft peach. These differences are not signs of comparison. They are traces of different waters, different seasons, different rhythms of feeding and rest. Each color belongs. The lake does not demand uniformity. It allows variety to emerge naturally, shaped by experience rather than design. And the flamingos wear these differences easily, without awareness of them. As night approaches, color becomes less distinct. Pink softens into muted gray. Feathers blend into shadow. What once stood out now rests quietly within the larger scene. And yet, the memory remains. Even when unseen, it continues to exist, held in the body, ready to reappear when light returns. As you listen, consider how experiences leave gentle marks within you as well. Not all memories are sharp or detailed. Some settle quietly, becoming part of how you feel rather than what you remember. They shape your inner color without calling attention to themselves. There is no need to trace them back, no need to analyze where they came from. Like the flamingo's feathers, they are simply there, evidence of moments that nourished rather than challenged. The birds stand calmly now, resting on one leg, heads tucked or lowered. The The lake reflects little light. The pink of the day has faded into something softer, almost imagined. Yet the birds do not lose themselves when the color dims. They remain whole. Memory does not require constant visibility to remain real. In this quiet hour, the flamingos are not displaying their color. They are resting within it. And the lake, having given what it could, rests as well. If thoughts drift now, let them settle like color in feathers, arriving without force, staying without explanation. In the next part, we will welcome the early light of morning when pale dawn touches resting wings and reveals the calm carried through the night. For now, remain with the softness of memory. Let it hold you gently. Morning arrives quietly at the lake, not with brightness, but with a soft change in tone. The sky begins to lighten almost without notice, shifting from deep blue into a pale silvery gray. The stars fade gently, as if stepping back rather than disappearing. The lake remains calm, holding the last of the night's stillness, while welcoming the day without announcement. The flamingos have not moved much. They stand as they did through the dark hours, balanced, resting, untroubled by the passing of time. Some remain on one leg, heads tucked into feathers. Others lift their heads slightly, eyes still half closed, aware but unhurried. The first light touches their wings softly. It does not reveal sharp detail. Instead, it smooths edges, turning feathers into gentle gradients of pale pink and warm gray. Reflections return to the water slowly, like thoughts waking one by one. The lake mirrors the birds again, though the image is faint, softened by early mist. There is no sudden awakening here. Morning unfolds at the same pace as night receded, slow, patient, kind. A light breeze moves across the water, just enough to stir a few ripples. The flamingos respond with small adjustments. A leg shifts, a wing settles more comfortably. These movements are not preparations. They are simply responses to comfort. As you imagine this moment, notice how it feels different from mornings filled with sound and direction. There is no list of tasks here, no signal to begin. The day does not demand attention. It offers space. The flamingos accept this easily. Some begin to feed again, lowering their heads with the same calm rhythm as before. Others remain still, content to rest longer. The flock does not move as one. It does not need to. Each bird follows what feels right in its own body, trusting that the lake will continue to support them. Light grows a little stronger now, but it remains gentle. The pink of feathers becomes more visible again, though still softened by distance and air. The color feels like a quiet continuation of the night, rather than a new beginning. If your own thoughts begin to surface, allow them to rise slowly, as the light does. There is no need to engage with them. You can let them exist at the edge of awareness, like reflections that come and go on the water's surface. Morning at the lake does not interrupt rest. It extends it. The flamingos do not hurry to greet the day. They allow it to come to them. This patience feels deeply settled, as though time itself has learned to slow in their presence. As the sun lifts slightly higher, warmth begins to return. The lake responds with subtle changes in texture and color. Nothing dramatic, nothing demanding. In the next part, we will reflect on why flamingos often choose to walk through the lake rather than fly. how choosing the slower path can feel more natural than taking to the air. For now, remain with the early light. Let it touch your thoughts softly, and rest within the calm of a morning that asks nothing of you. For a bird shaped for flight, the flamingo spends a surprising amount of time on foot. Long legs move slowly through shallow water, step by patient step, as if flying were only one option among many, and not always the most comfortable one. At the lake, walking feels natural. The water is shallow and welcoming, cool against the legs, steady beneath each careful movement. A flamingo lifts one foot, places it forward, and waits for the lake to settle around it before taking the next step. There's no splash, no urgency. Each movement is small, deliberate, and easy to repeat. Flying, by contrast, asks for preparation. It asks for space, for energy, for a brief moment of effort. Walking asks for none of that. It allows the bird to remain connected to the lake, to taste the water, to pause whenever it wishes. So the flamingos walk. They drift across the lake not by leaving it, but by staying within it, moving through nourishment rather than above it. Heads lower occasionally to feed. Bodies pause often to rest. Progress happens quietly, almost accidentally, as a result of comfort rather than intention. As you imagine this slow movement, notice how different it feels from the idea of travel as departure. Here, movement does not require separation. The flamingos do not leave the lake to go somewhere else. They remain part of it the entire time. Walking allows for listening. With each step, the flamingos feel subtle changes beneath their feet, slight differences in depth, temperature, texture. These sensations guide them more gently than sight ever could. The lake speaks through contact, and the birds respond by adjusting their pace. Sometimes they stop altogether. A pause does not mean they have arrived. It simply means the moment feels complete. The flamingos stand quietly, legs partially submerged, reflections steady beneath them. Nothing is lost by waiting. Nothing needs to be gained by continuing. This way of moving feels deeply calm. There is no pressure to take the fastest route. No need to rise above what is already supportive. Walking keeps the flamingos grounded, connected to what feeds them, cools them, steadies them. As you listen, you might imagine what it would feel like to move through your own thoughts in this way. Not lifting away from them, not rushing past them, just stepping slowly, pausing when needed, trusting that movement will happen naturally over time. The flamingos understand that flight will be there when it is needed. It does not disappear just because they are not using it. For now, walking is enough. As the light continues to warm the lake, more birds begin to shift position. A few steps here, a pause there, the flock reshapes itself gently, without direction or signal. In the next part, we will explore how such calm movement allows large flocks to share space without conflict, how quiet awareness replaces competition. For now, remain with the image of flamingos walking slowly through shallow water. Let each step feel unhurried, and allow yourself to move or rest in the same gentle way. In a place where thousands gather, one might expect tension. But at the lake, tension never arrives. The flamingos share space as naturally as water shares light. There's no sense of ownership here, no claim to a specific patch of water or stretch of shore. Each bird stands where it stands, moves when it moves, and rests when rest feels right. Space is not defended, it is felt. As you picture the flock now, notice how evenly they are spread, close enough to feel one another's presence, yet far enough to remain comfortable. This balance is not measured. It is sensed through posture, through distance, through a quiet awareness that requires no thought. When one flamingo steps forward, another steps slightly aside, not out of avoidance, but consideration. The movement is small and fluid, like a gentle adjustment rather than a response. No signal is exchanged, no reaction lingers. The lake absorbs these shifts effortlessly. Water closes around legs as birds pass, then smooths itself again. Ripples fade before they reach anyone else. The environment itself seems to encourage calm, offering no sharp edges, no sudden barriers. In this setting, conflict simply has nowhere to settle. Feeding happens side by side. Standing happens shoulder to shoulder. Rest happens in loose proximity. And yet, nothing feels crowded. The flamingos do not compare positions or compete for resources. The lake offers enough, and that sense of abundance carries through the flock. As evening light softens further, the birds grow even quieter. Movements slow, adjustments become rare. Stillness spreads gently, like warmth. If you listen closely, you may notice how different this feels from spaces shaped by urgency. There is no need to watch others closely, no need to anticipate interruption. Awareness remains open and relaxed. The flamingos seem to understand that shared space does not require agreement, it requires ease. Each bird maintains its own rhythm while remaining attuned to the presence of others. This creates harmony without effort, togetherness without demand. As you breathe, allow this feeling of spaciousness to reach you. There is room here for your thoughts, for your breath, for your body to settle without needing to arrange itself. Nothing presses in, nothing pulls away. The flock remains balanced, held by water, light, and mutual calm. Even as numbers grow, the sense of peace does not thin. It deepens. The night continues to approach, and with it, a deeper quiet. The flamingos stand calmly, their reflection steady, their presence gentle. In the next part, we will explore the quiet language these birds use to communicate, how posture and small gestures speak more clearly than sound ever could. For now, rest within this shared space. Let it feel open. Let it feel enough. The flamingos do not speak often, and when they do, it is rarely with sound. Their language lives in posture, in balance, in the smallest changes of position that pass quietly between them. It is a language made for calm places, one that does not interrupt rest, but supports it. As you picture the flock now, notice how much is being said without movement. A slight tilt of the head, a gentle lowering of the neck, a wing stretching outward for a moment before folding back into stillness. These gestures are not signals meant to be noticed. They are expressions of comfort, awareness, and ease. When one flamingo adjusts its stance, nearby birds sense the shift, not as a message to respond to, but as information to hold lightly. Space reshapes itself without instruction. The flock remains fluid, responsive, and quiet. This communication is never urgent. A bird resting on one leg may switch slowly to the other, signaling nothing more than a need for balance. Another might turn its body slightly, aligning with the breeze. These movements ripple gently through the group, creating harmony without coordination. The lake reflects these postures clearly. Long necks form soft curves against the water. Bodies remain upright, unstrained. Even at rest, there is grace in how each bird holds itself. As you listen, you may notice how calming it feels to imagine communication without explanation. Nothing needs to be interpreted. Nothing needs to be answered. The meaning is carried in the movement itself, then allowed to fade. The flamingos seem to trust that being seen is enough. They do not repeat gestures. They do not emphasize. They allow posture to express what is needed in the moment, then return to stillness. The message does not linger because it does not need to. This quiet language works because the environment supports it. The open lake, the gentle light, the absence of noise, all of it makes space for subtlety. In such a place, small movements are enough. As the night deepens, even these gestures become rarer. Heads remain tucked, wings stay folded, bodies settle fully into rest. Communication continues, but it has slowed to the level of breath, of presence. If thoughts arise now, you might imagine letting them express themselves in the same way, appearing briefly, without explanation, then softening back into quiet. There is no need to follow them, no need to respond. The flamingos remain aware of one another, even in near stillness. Their posture holds that awareness gently, without effort. In the next part, we will observe how weather influences these birds, not as a force that pushes them, but as a guide that nudges softly, shaping movement through subtle change. For now, remain with the quiet language of posture. Let it say just enough, and allow the rest to remain unspoken. The weather at the lake never feels commanding. It does not arrive with instructions. It simply settles in, offering gentle guidance through small changes. As the night continues to deepen, the air cools by only a few degrees, not enough to startle the body, just enough to be noticed in a quiet way. The flamingos respond without thought, without urgency. Feathers fluff slightly, holding warmth closer. Bodies angle subtly toward or away from the breeze, finding comfort through instinct rather than decision. The wind here is rarely strong. It moves across the water in soft passes, brushing the surface into faint textures that appear and fade. When it changes direction, the flamingos notice, not as a warning, but as information, a shift in stance, a gentle turn of the neck. Nothing more is required. Rain, when it comes, arrives in the same way, not sudden, not loud. Drops touch the lake lightly, creating countless tiny circles that overlap and disappear. The flamingos remain. They do not rush to leave. The water is already part of them. A little more of it changes nothing. Weather does not push them forward. It invites adjustment. Clouds move slowly overhead, softening moonlight, then allowing it to return. Temperatures rise and fall across days, not hours. Evaporation gently lowers the lake in some places, while rainfall fills it again elsewhere. These shifts guide the flamingos without forcing their movement. Over time, a place that once felt full may begin to feel less so. The water grows slightly shallower. The taste changes just enough to be noticed. The birds respond gradually, drifting toward another lake where conditions feel more supportive. No moment defines the change. There is no dramatic departure, just a gentle leaning away from one place and toward another, shaped by comfort rather than necessity. As you listen, notice how different this feels from the idea of weather as something to endure. Here, it is part of the conversation between body and landscape. It offers signals quietly, trusting that those who need them will respond in their own time. The flamingos do not resist these signals. They do not hurry to escape them. They allow weather to guide without control, to shape behavior without pressure. Even now, as the night air settles into a steady coolness, the flock remains calm. Balance is maintained. Rest continues uninterrupted. If thoughts drift now, imagine them like passing clouds, appearing softly, changing shape, then moving on without leaving a mark. You do not need to follow them. You can simply notice the space they move through. Weather teaches the flamingos something simple and enduring, that guidance does not need to be loud to be effective. That change can arrive gently and still be trusted. In the next part, we will explore the long pauses between journeys, how waiting itself becomes an essential part of migration. For now, remain with the steady air, the quiet wind, the calm surface of the lake. Let the weather guide your rest, not push it. Between one movement and the next, there's a pause, and within that pause, there is no emptiness. The flamingos understand this instinctively. They do not travel continuously from one place to another. Their migration is not a single, unbroken line across the land. It is a series of gentle arrivals, long stays, and quiet departures, each separated by periods of rest that last far longer than the moments of movement. At the lake, the pause stretches comfortably. Days pass with little change. The water remains supportive. Food stays abundant. The air moves in familiar patterns. In these conditions, the flamingos do not feel called to go anywhere else. They remain, not because they are delayed, but because nothing asks them to leave. These long pauses are not interruptions in the journey. They are the journey. During this time, the flock settles deeply into rhythm. Feeding happens without urgency. Rest fills most hours. Standing becomes second nature. Even the smallest movements grow slower, more economical, as if the birds are conserving not energy, but attention. The lake holds them patiently. There is no signal counting down to the next change, no moment of anticipation. The flamingos are not waiting for the future. They are fully present within the pause, allowing it to be as long as it needs to be. As you imagine this, notice how rarely stillness is given permission to last. Here, it lasts freely. It stretches into days without explanation. The birds do not mark time. They do not measure how long they have stayed. They respond only when something within the landscape begins to shift, when the water feels different, when nourishment thins, when comfort quietly fades. Until then, the pause remains complete. As night returns once more, the flock stands quietly together. Pink shapes soften into shadow. Reflections blur. The lake grows darker, but nothing changes in a way that requires response. If thoughts arise now, allow them to pause as well. There is no need to push them forward or send them away. They can rest in the same way the flamingos do, present, unhurried, without purpose. The long pause teaches something subtle, that progress does not always feel like motion. Sometimes it feels like being held by the present moment long enough for the next step to arrive naturally. The flamingos trust this completely. They do not doubt the pause. They do not fear it becoming permanent. They simply live within it, knowing that movement will return when it is needed. And when it does, it will arrive gently, without announcement, without force. In the next part, we will step into nightfall more fully, observing how the lake and its pink shoreline settle as darkness spreads. For now, remain within the pause. Let it stretch. Let it hold you quietly, without asking anything in return. Night arrives at the lake without a clear edge. It does not replace the day. It slowly softens it. The colors that once felt distinct begin to blend. The pale pink of feathers, the silvery blue of water, the muted browns of the shore all ease into one another, as if the landscape were gently closing its eyes. The horizon fades first, then the details near the water's edge. What remains is shape and presence rather than form. The flamingos notice this change, though they do not react to it. Their bodies remain steady, balanced, and calm. Standing together near the shoreline, they become quieter silhouettes, their reflections stretching faintly across the darkening surface. The lake itself grows still. Earlier ripples flatten and disappear. The wind slows, then rests. Even sound seems to retreat, leaving behind a soft hush that feels protective rather than empty. The water absorbs the last of the light, holding it beneath the surface like a memory. As you imagine this moment, allow your own awareness to soften in the same way. There is no need to focus sharply. Night does not ask for clarity. It offers rest through gentleness. The flamingos settle more deeply now, heads tucked closer to bodies. One leg rests fully, the other folded comfortably beneath. Their posture suggests trust, not in anything specific, but in the steadiness of the place they are standing. The pink shoreline remains visible only faintly, like a suggestion rather than a sight. Color becomes something felt rather than seen. It lingers in the imagination, even as the eye can no longer trace it clearly. This is the hour when nothing changes quickly. The lake does not cool suddenly. The air does not shift sharply. Everything moves at a pace slow enough to go unnoticed, unless you are already paying gentle attention. If thoughts arise now, let them fade as the colors do. They do not need to resolve. They can simply soften, losing their edges, becoming part of the background. The flamingos remain together through the night, not because they are guarding one another, but because together feels natural. Their presence creates a quiet continuity, a sense that nothing is missing. Above them, the sky deepens. Stars appear slowly, one by one, reflected faintly in places where the water remains smooth. The lake becomes a darker mirror, holding both sky and birds in the same calm frame. Nightfall over the pink shore is not an ending. It is a continuation of rest, a deepening of the pause that began earlier. As the hours stretch quietly ahead, the flamingos do not prepare for sleep in any dramatic way. They simply remain as they are, allowing rest to arrive naturally. In the next part, we will stay with the night and observe how flamingos sleep balanced, steady, and deeply at ease within the dark. For now, remain with the shoreline as it fades. Let the night hold the color gently and allow yourself to drift into the same calm stillness. As night settles fully around the lake, the flamingos begin to sleep. Not by lying down, not by withdrawing from the world, but by remaining exactly where they are. They stand quietly in the shallow water, balanced on one leg, bodies upright and calm. At first glance, it may seem like effort. But for the flamingos, this posture is ease itself. Their bodies are shaped for this kind of rest, where balance holds without tension and stillness feels natural. The lifted leg folds gently beneath the body, tucked close, conserving warmth. The standing leg remains steady, supported by a structure that locks softly into place, allowing muscles to relax rather than strain. Nothing is held forcefully. Nothing is tightened. Sleep arrives without ceremony. Heads turn slowly, settling against the back or resting lightly among feathers. Eyes close, not completely at once, but gradually, as awareness dims in gentle layers. One side of the body rests more deeply, while the other remains faintly aware of the surroundings, a quiet vigilance that does not disturb the calm. The lake supports this rest without interruption. The water remains shallow and still, cool but not cold, touching the flamingo's legs like a steady presence. Reflections blur into darkness, removing the need for visual attention. Sound has softened to almost nothing. In this moment, rest and awareness exist together. The flamingos do not disappear into sleep. They sink into it slowly, maintaining balance without effort. Breathing remains even. Bodies remain upright. There is no sense of vulnerability here, only trust in the steadiness of place and posture. As you imagine this scene, notice how different this kind of rest feels. It does not require complete withdrawal. It does not demand silence or isolation. It allows the body to remain present while the mind settles deeply. If your own body feels heavy or tired, you may allow that feeling to exist without needing to change it. Like the flamingos, you can rest while remaining supported by the surface beneath you, by the quiet around you, by the steady rhythm of your breath. Night continues to deepen. Stars move slowly across the sky. Time stretches gently, unmarked by events. The flamingos remain asleep, their silhouettes unchanged, their presence constant. Occasionally, a bird shifts slightly, adjusting balance, then returns immediately to stillness. These movements are so small they barely register, like a breath taken a little deeper, then released. Sleep here is not an absence. It is a continuation of calm. The lake holds the flock as it has all evening, offering steadiness rather than stimulation. Nothing asks for attention. Nothing needs to be done. In the next part, we will remain with the night a little longer, watching how the flamingos become part of the darkness itself, soft shapes fading into shadow, resting within the landscape rather than upon it. For now, stay with the image of flamingos sleeping while standing, balanced, supported, at ease within the night. Even as the flamingos sleep, the lake remains awake in its own quiet way, not watchful, simply present. This water has held many nights like this before. It has reflected countless skies, carried the weight of stars, and welcomed generations of resting birds. Memory here is not stored as detail or story. It is held as familiarity, a deep, steady knowing of how things return. The lake remembers through repetition. Each season, water rises and recedes. Minerals gather, then thin. Algae bloom softly, then fade. The changes are slow enough to feel gentle, yet certain enough to feel reliable. Nothing needs to be rushed when time moves this way. As you imagine the lake now, notice how it feels less like a surface and more like a presence. Dark and smooth, it holds the shapes of sleeping flamingos without distinction. Reflections have nearly disappeared, leaving only suggestion. The water does not insist on showing what it holds. It is content simply to hold it. The flamingos have come here before, not as individuals, but as a continuity. Their arrival feels familiar to the lake, even if the exact birds change over time. Pink forms appear, rest, and drift away again. The lake accepts each return without expectation. There is comfort in this familiarity. Nothing needs to be announced. Nothing needs to be remembered actively. The lake does not compare this night to the last. It does not anticipate the next. It remains open, receptive, steady. As the night deepens further, subtle movements continue beneath. Water cools by degrees too small to notice. Tiny life drifts slowly, responding to temperature and darkness. These changes are part of the lake's memory as well, not stored, but embodied. The flamingos sleep within this memory, supported by something larger than themselves. They do not need to know the lake's history to trust it. The trust is felt, not reasoned. If thoughts arise now, you might imagine placing them gently into the water. You do not need to hold on to them. The lake has room. It can carry them quietly, without stirring its surface. There is no pressure to recall anything clearly. Memory here is not about holding on. It is about allowing patterns to repeat when the time is right. The lake remembers how to be a lake. The flamingos remember how to return. Together, they create a rhythm that stretches beyond any single moment. A rhythm that does not depend on awareness to continue. As the hours pass, nothing significant happens, and that is precisely the point. Stillness remains complete. Sleep remains deep. The lake does not grow restless in the dark. In the next part, we will gently explore how ancient paths form across shallow water, how repeated returns shape movement over time without ever becoming rigid. For now, remain with the lake that remembers. Let it hold what you do not need to carry, and rest within the quiet assurance of things that return naturally, again and again. Over time, movement leaves a trace, not a mark you can see clearly, but a familiarity that settles into the land. Across the shallow lakes of Kenya, the flamingos follow paths that are not drawn and not remembered in the way stories are remembered. These paths exist as tendencies, slight preferences shaped by depth, by comfort, by where water once felt supportive and may feel so again. The birds do not think of these paths as routes. They experience them as ease. A step feels natural here. Another step follows. Soon, a gentle line of movement forms, not through intention, but through repetition. The lake welcomes this without resistance. Its floor is soft, its contours shaped slowly by water and time. Nothing hardens, nothing demands precision. Each season, the paths shift slightly, responding to rainfall, evaporation, and quiet change beneath the surface. And yet, something familiar remains. The flamingos drift along these shallow ways, sometimes without knowing they are following anything at all. They move where the water feels right against their legs, where the taste remains nourishing, where standing brings balance without effort. The path reveals itself only while they are on it. There's comfort in this kind of guidance. No one needs to remember where to go. The body knows, guided by sensation rather than memory. Movement unfolds in the present moment, shaped by what feels steady now rather than what once was. As you imagine this, picture faint impressions in the lake, areas where water is slightly clearer, where feeding has been gentle but frequent, where the lake floor has adjusted over time. These are not tracks, they are invitations. The flamingos respond quietly. They drift forward together, then pause. Some follow the suggestion of the path a little longer. Others stop where they are, content to remain. There is no obligation to continue. The path does not pull, it simply exists. This way of moving feels ancient not because it is old, but because it is simple. It does not require instruction. It does not demand commitment. It allows each moment to decide the next. As night begins to ease once more toward dawn, the lake holds these paths gently. They are there and not there, present but never fixed, ready to be followed again or reshaped entirely. If your own thoughts wander now, allow them to move like these paths, forming softly, dissolving easily, leaving no need to trace them back. You do not have to remember where you were going. You only have to notice where you are. The flamingos trust this completely. They move when movement feels right. They rest when rest feels right. The path appears as needed, then fades back into the water. There is no wrong direction here, only gentle tendency. In the next part, we will widen our view once more, stepping into the quiet intelligence of the entire ecosystem. How many small lives move together without command or control? For now, remain with the ancient paths across shallow water. Let them guide without pulling, and rest in the knowledge that you do not need to know where you are going to be exactly where you belong. When you look closely at the lake, it begins to feel thoughtful. Not in the way a mind thinks, but in the way balance quietly holds itself. Nothing here gives orders. Nothing directs from above. And yet, everything moves together. The algae beneath the surface grow only as much as the light allows. The water carries minerals upward from the earth, offering them slowly, never all at once. The flamingos arrive, feed gently, and drift when conditions begin to change. Each part responds to the others without instruction, as if listening to a shared rhythm that does not need a name. This is the intelligence of the ecosystem, not sharp or fast, but calm and responsive. The lake does not plan for the flamingos. The flamingos do not plan for the lake, and still, their lives fit together with ease. As you imagine this web of quiet relationships, notice how nothing stands alone. Algae thrive because of sunlight and minerals. Flamingos thrive because of algae and shallow water. The lake remains healthy because feeding happens slowly, without excess. Even evaporation and rainfall play their part, guiding change without disruption. Each element adjusts to the others gently. There is no moment when the system needs to correct itself urgently. Change arrives gradually, and responses unfold at the same pace. This slowness is not weakness, it is resilience. It allows the ecosystem to absorb variation without strain. As night deepens and then slowly loosens toward dawn, the lake continues its quiet work. Water cools, then warms again. Life below the surface drifts, feeds, rests. The flamingos remain present, standing or sleeping, held by something larger than any single action. This kind of intelligence, does not rely on awareness. It does not require understanding to function. It exists in the way relationships repeat themselves gently over time. If thoughts arise now, you might imagine them as part of this ecosystem as well. They do not need to be organized. They do not need to lead anywhere. They can drift, interact, and fade naturally, just as life does beneath the lake's surface. There is comfort in knowing that not everything needs direction. The ecosystem does not rush to optimize itself. It does not try to be more than it is. It simply responds slowly, calmly, and consistently to what is present. As the flamingos continue their quiet rest, they are not separate from this intelligence. They are expressions of it. Their stillness supports the lake just as the lake supports them. Nothing here competes for control. Nothing demands attention. The calm ecosystem holds itself together through patience, repetition, and gentle adjustment. In the next part, we will reflect on how adaptation within this system happens without struggle, how change can feel like alignment rather than effort. For now, remain within this calm intelligence. Let it hold you as it holds the lake, steady, quiet, and complete. Change at the lake does not announce itself. It arrives quietly, almost politely, and waits to be noticed. The flamingos do not resist it. When water levels rise or fall, they adjust their stance. When food becomes more or less abundant, they drift a little farther or remain a little longer. These shifts do not feel like effort. They feel like alignment, small movements that follow comfort rather than challenge. Adaptation here is not dramatic. It does not require preparation or resolve. It happens through attention, through noticing how the body feels in a place and responding gently to that feeling over time. The flamingos are shaped for this. Their long legs allow them to stand comfortably at different depths. Their feeding style lets them adjust to subtle changes in water chemistry. Their social rhythm gives them freedom to move alone or together without pressure. Nothing forces them to change quickly. Nothing holds them in place unnecessarily. The lake supports this flexibility. It does not stay exactly the same from one day to the next. Light shifts. Temperature moves gradually. Minerals concentrate, then disperse. Each change is small enough to be absorbed without strain. Together, bird and water practice adaptation as a form of rest. There is no sense of overcoming, no sense of endurance, only quiet responsiveness. As you imagine this, notice how different it feels from the idea of adaptation as something demanding. Here, change does not ask for strength. It asks for softness, for the ability to feel what is present and adjust without judgment. If the water feels cooler, feathers fluff slightly. If the breeze shifts, bodies turn gently. If the lake grows shallower, steps extend a little farther. These adjustments are not noticed as decisions. They are simply what happens next. As night loosens into early morning once more, the flamingos remain calm within these changes. They do not cling to how things were the day before. They do not anticipate what the next day must bring. They stay with what is here now. If your own thoughts begin to stir, you might imagine allowing them the same freedom. They do not need to stay fixed. They do not need to resolve. They can adjust quietly, responding to comfort rather than expectation. Adaptation without struggle feels like trust. Trust that change will be gradual enough to meet. Trust that the body knows how to respond. Trust that rest and movement are not opposites, but partners. The flamingos embody this trust without effort. They move when it feels natural. They remain when it feels supportive. And in doing so, they stay aligned with the lake's slow rhythm. As light returns gently to the water, pink tones reappear softly, shaped by nourishment rather than display. Nothing announces that adaptation has occurred. And yet, everything remains in balance. In the next part, we will reflect on how seasons breathe through this landscape, expanding and contracting like a slow, steady rhythm that guides life without pressure. For now, remain with this gentle adaptability. Let change feel like ease, and allow yourself to rest within it, just as the lake and flamingos do. The seasons around the lake do not turn sharply. They breathe. Water rises slowly, then lowers again. Light grows longer, then shorter. Warmth arrives gently, lingers, and drifts away without hurry. The landscape does not rush to change its mood. It allows one season to soften into the next, like an exhale following an inhale. The flamingos move within this breathing world with ease. When rains come, the lakes expand. Shorelines stretch outward, welcoming shallow water across wide open spaces. Feeding grounds grow generous. The flamingos spread out, walking farther without needing to leave the lake's embrace. Their days lengthen gently, filled with nourishment and rest. When dry months return, water recedes slowly, minerals concentrate. The taste of the lake shifts just enough to be noticed. The flamingos respond without urgency, drifting closer together, then gradually toward other lakes where water remains supportive. No season demands immediate response. The landscape gives time to notice, and the flamingos take that time. As you imagine this slow breathing of the land, picture the lakes expanding and contracting like a calm chest rising and falling. Nothing is lost in this movement. Each phase carries its own quiet richness. The dry season does not strip the land bare. It reveals textures, pale mineral flats, salt-dusted shores, reflective surfaces that glow softly at dawn and dusk. The wet season does not overwhelm. It restores depth, softness, and abundance. Life adjusts naturally within these rhythms. The flamingos do not measure seasons by calendars or dates. They feel them through temperature against their legs, through the changing depth of water, through the shifting taste that guides their feeding. The response is never dramatic. It is spread gently across weeks and months. As night settles again, the season feels present without being named. The air carries a familiar weight. The lake holds a familiar temperature. The flamingos rest, trusting that change will continue to arrive gradually. If thoughts drift now, allow them to follow this breathing pattern. You do not need to hold on to any one thought. Let them rise, soften, and pass, just as seasons do. There is comfort in knowing that nothing here is permanent, and nothing disappears abruptly. The land does not fear change. It welcomes it slowly. The flamingos embody this acceptance. They do not cling to abundance. They do not resist quiet times. They move with the seasons as they breathe, expanding into fullness, contracting into simplicity. As stars return to the sky and the lake darkens once more, the rhythm continues unseen. Beneath the surface, life adjusts. Above it, birds rest. Around it, air cools and settles. In the next part, we will reflect on the beauty of not staying forever, how leaving a place can feel as gentle and natural as arriving. For now, remain with the seasons as they breathe. In, slowly, out, softly, and allow your rest to follow the same calm rhythm. There comes a moment when a place feels complete, not empty, not lacking, simply finished for now. The flamingos recognize this moment without naming it. They do not gather to decide. They do not pause in uncertainty. They feel it quietly as a soft loosening, an understanding that it is time to drift, even though nothing is wrong. The lake has given what it can, and the flamingos are ready to move on. Leaving in this world does not feel like loss. It feels like balance. The birds do not turn away abruptly. They remain for days, sometimes weeks, after the first signs of change appear. Movement unfolds slowly, spreading across time so gently that it barely feels like departure. One flamingo steps a little farther than before. Another follows later. Some remain behind, resting longer, trusting that their own moment will arrive in its own way. No one is left out. No one is pushed forward. This is the beauty of not staying forever. Nothing here insists on permanence. The lake does not ask the flamingos to remain. The flamingos do not promise to return. And yet, both trust that paths will cross again when conditions align. As you imagine this gentle leaving, notice how different it feels from endings that close tightly. There is no sharp goodbye, no final look back, just a gradual easing away, like light fading at dusk. The water grows slightly shallower. The taste shifts. The flamingos respond by drifting toward other lakes where nourishment feels fuller. They move without regret, carrying no sense of abandonment. What mattered has already settled into them, quietly, completely. Memory does not cling here, it rests. As night returns once more, the flock stands quietly together, perhaps closer to the edge than before. The lake reflects fewer pink shapes now, but it does not feel empty. It feels open. If your own thoughts drift toward places you have left behind, allow them to soften here. Not every departure needs to be heavy. Not every ending needs explanation. Some moments are meant to complete themselves gently. The flamingos teach this without words. They move on not because they must escape, but because movement itself is part of the rhythm. Staying and leaving are not opposites. They are two phases of the same calm flow. As stars appear again above the lake, the flamingos remain present in the moment of transition, neither fully arrived nor fully gone. This in-between feels peaceful rather than uncertain. In the next part, we will observe how, even in great numbers, flamingos create space for one another. How leaving room becomes a quiet act of care. For now, remain with the beauty of not staying forever. Let movement feel gentle, and allow rest to continue, even as the scene slowly, softly shifts. Even as the flamingos gather in great numbers, the lake never feels full. There is always room. From above, the flock might appear dense, a wide field of pink stretching across shallow water. But from within, the experience is different. Space exists everywhere, woven gently between bodies, movements, and reflections. Each flamingo occupies its place without pressing into another's. This spaciousness is not measured in distance, it is felt in awareness. A bird steps forward and another adjusts slightly, not to move away, but to allow the step to complete itself. A neck lowers to feed, and nearby birds pause briefly, creating a quiet opening. These gestures are small and unremarkable, yet together they create ease. The lake supports this pattern. Its wide shallows offer room to spread, to wander, to pause without interruption. The water does not funnel the flock into narrow paths. It opens outward, encouraging gentle dispersion rather than compression. As the light shifts toward late afternoon and then evening again, the flamingos naturally redistribute themselves. Some drift closer to the shore. Others remain farther out, standing where the water feels just right. No area becomes crowded for long. Movement flows toward comfort. This is how a crowd makes space, by listening. The flamingos are attentive to one another without watching closely. They sense presence through subtle cues. The angle of a body, the direction of a gaze, the faint disturbance of water nearby. This sensitivity allows them to share without strain. As you imagine this scene, notice how calming it feels to picture togetherness without pressure. There is no need to hold your place tightly, no need to defend or assert. Space is created through mutual ease, not separation. Reflections beneath the birds echo this openness. Shapes overlap softly, then separate again as the water moves. Nothing stays fixed. Nothing needs to. If thoughts arise now, allow them to have space as well. You do not need to crowd them together or push them away. They can appear, take their place gently, and then drift on, leaving room behind. As dusk settles, the flock becomes quieter. Movement slows. The spaces between birds feel wider, not because the birds have left, but because attention has softened. Awareness expands, making room for stillness. The flamingos stand calmly, each one complete, each one connected, none of them crowded by the presence of the others. The lake holds them all easily, as if it were made for exactly this number. In this calm crowd, there is a lesson that does not need to be learned. It can simply be felt. That space is something we create together, through gentleness rather than distance. In the next part, we will reflect on how the flamingos themselves become part of the landscape, how color, movement, and presence turn the lake into something living and whole. For now, remain with the crowd that makes space. Let openness surround you, and rest within it, unpressed and at ease. At a certain point, it becomes difficult to say where the lake ends and the flamingos begin. Color softens that boundary. What was once water-reflecting sky now carries a gentle blush. What were once individual birds now appear as part of a wider scene, pink drifting across pale blue, rose blending into silver. The flamingos no longer stand on the landscape. They become part of it. This change does not happen suddenly. It unfolds as light shifts and attention relaxes. As the eye stops separating details, the scene settles into harmony. The flock stretches across the shallows, and the lake accepts their presence without contrast. Together, they form a living surface, one that moves slowly, breathes quietly, and holds stillness with ease. From a distance, the flamingos look like color itself has gathered, not placed, not arranged, simply present. The lake floor beneath them remains unseen, yet felt. The water carries reflections lightly, allowing shapes to blur at the edges. Legs disappear into pale ripples. Feathers dissolve into the water's tone. Everything softens. As you imagine this, Notice how restful it feels when nothing insists on being separate, when color does not demand attention, but offers cohesion instead. The eye rests because it does not need to decide what to focus on. Pink becomes less a feature and more an atmosphere. The flamingos do not display their color. They carry it quietly, shaped by nourishment and time. As they stand together, those colors overlap and blend, creating something larger than any single bird. This is how a landscape remembers life, not by preserving individual forms, but by allowing presence to shape the whole. The lake becomes pink not because it is changed permanently, but because it is temporarily shared. As evening deepens, the color fades again. Pink turns to lavender. Lavender softens into gray. Eventually, even that dissolves into shadow. The landscape does not lose anything in this fading. It rests. If your own thoughts drift now, allow them to blend in the same way. You do not need to hold on to sharp outlines. You can let ideas soften, overlap, and dissolve into quiet awareness. The flamingos remain as the light changes. Their presence continues even when color becomes subtle. They do not rely on being seen clearly to belong. When dawn comes again, the color will return. Not exactly the same, not entirely different, shaped by new light, new water, new moments of feeding and rest. The landscape welcomes this without expectation. In the next part, we will reflect on timing, how flamingos seem to know when to move next, not by urgency, but by readiness that unfolds gently. For now, remain with the image of color becoming place. Let boundaries soften, and allow yourself to rest within a landscape that does not ask you to stand apart. The moment to move does not arrive with urgency. It arrives quietly, almost like a thought you notice only after it is settled. For the flamingos, knowing when to leave a place is not a decision made all at once. It is a feeling that grows gently over time, a subtle lightness in the water, a change in taste that lingers just a moment longer than before, a sense that standing here is still comfortable, but no longer complete. Nothing is wrong, and yet something is ready to shift. The flamingos respond without haste. They do not gather at the edge of the lake, preparing dramatically. Instead, movement begins softly. A few birds step farther than usual. Others follow later, or not at all. The flock stretches, thins, reshapes itself, allowing change to pass through rather than pulling everyone along at once. This is how timing works here. It does not push, it invites. The lake offers its signals slowly, trusting the birds to notice when they are ready. And the flamingos trust themselves to respond without needing certainty. They move not because they must, but because the moment feels open. As you imagine this, notice how different this feels from movement driven by pressure. There is no fear of being late, no sense of missing something. Movement is not an escape, it is a continuation. Some flamingos lift into flight eventually, wings spreading calmly, rising without hurry. Others walk toward new shallows, remaining grounded, connected to water with each step. Both ways are accepted. Timing does not demand a single form. The flock does not leave all at once. It never has. Leaving is a gradual thinning, a soft dispersal that unfolds over days. The lake grows quieter again, not suddenly empty, but gently open. If your own thoughts drift toward what comes next, allow them to rest here. You do not need to know when to move. You do not need to decide anything now. Timing, like the lake, has a way of revealing itself without being chased. The flamingos do not look back to measure what they are leaving behind. They carry what they need within them: nourishment, balance, memory. The rest can remain with the water. As night approaches once more, stars begin to reflect faintly on the lake's surface. The flamingos that remain stand quietly, resting within the in-between. Those who have begun to move do so gently, without breaking the calm. Learning to move when it is time does not require effort. It requires listening. In the next part, we will reflect on what slowness protects, how moving gently preserves energy, harmony, and quiet understanding. For now, remain with this moment of readiness. Let movement wait until it feels natural, and rest in the assurance that you will know when it is time, just as the flamingos do. Slowness is not an absence of movement. It is a form of care. At the lake, everything that lasts moves slowly. Water shifts by degrees, not leaps. Light changes its angle minute by minute. The flamingos respond in the same way, never rushing, never pressing beyond what feels comfortable. This slowness protects something delicate. It protects energy, allowing bodies to remain balanced without strain. The flamingos do not spend more effort than they need. They stand when standing feels right. They walk when walking feels natural. They fly only when the moment truly opens. Nothing is wasted. It also protects attention. By moving slowly, the flamingos remain aware of subtle changes: the taste of the water, the depth beneath their feet, the presence of others nearby. Nothing important is missed because nothing is rushed past. Awareness stays wide and gentle, never narrowing into urgency. The lake benefits from this pace as well. Feeding happens gradually, allowing algae and microscopic life to remain in balance. Movement stirs the water lightly, then allows it to settle again. The ecosystem stays steady because no single action overwhelms it. Slowness keeps the system whole. As you imagine this quiet protection, notice how your own body responds. There is a sense of easing, perhaps, as if something inside you recognizes this rhythm. Slowness does not ask for permission. It simply offers rest. The flamingos embody this without effort. They do not choose slowness as a strategy. It is simply how life unfolds when nothing pushes against it. Their days stretch comfortably, shaped by repetition and pause rather than demand. As evening approaches once more, the lake grows calm again. Reflections lengthen, sounds soften. The flamingos remain present, unbothered by the passing of time. They are protected not by vigilance, but by ease. If thoughts arise now, allow them to slow as well. You do not need to resolve them. You do not need to follow them. They can exist at the pace of the lake, appearing, softening, fading. Slowness protects rest. It allows sleep to arrive naturally, without being summoned. It gives the body time to settle, the mind time to release. Nothing needs to be completed before rest can begin. The flamingos show this quietly. As night deepens, they return to stillness, standing calmly, balanced and supported. Their presence feels steady, unhurried, complete. What slowness protects cannot be measured easily. It protects balance. It protects connection. It protects the quiet understanding that nothing essential is being missed. In the next part, we will begin our gentle descent back towards stillness, returning to the question we first carried beneath the open sky, now softened by everything we have witnessed. For now, remain with slowness, let it hold you, and allow rest to settle in its own time, just as it does at the lake. The question we carried at the beginning returns now, softer than before, not as words, as a feeling. What guides a creature when there is no rush to arrive? After time spent with the lake, with the flamingos, with slowness itself, the question no longer asks to be answered. It simply rests, like warm light settling across still water. The flamingos stand quietly once more, their long silhouettes reflected faintly beneath them. Night has returned in full, and with it, a deeper calm. The lake feels familiar now. The sounds, the air, the rhythm of standing and resting all feel known, even if you have never been here before. Guidance, it seems, does not come from urgency. It comes from presence. The flamingos are guided by what is beneath their feet, by the taste of the water, by the comfort of standing where balance feels easy. Nothing pushes them forward. Nothing holds them back. They remain where support is offered and drift only when it fades. As you imagine this, notice how your own body rests where it is. There's no need to go anywhere else right now. The moment you are in is already holding you. The question beneath the open sky has changed shape. It is no longer about direction. It is about trust. Trust that stillness can be enough. Trust that movement will come when it is needed. Trust that listening is often quieter than we expect. The lake offers this lesson without words. It reflects what is above it. It carries what enters it. It releases what moves on. Nothing is forced to stay. Nothing is urged to leave. As stars drift slowly across the sky, the flamingos remain calm, balanced and at ease. Their presence feels steady, as if they are held by something deeper than habit. They are guided by alignment rather than intention. If thoughts arise now, you can let them rest alongside this question. They do not need to be resolved. They can simply exist, like stars reflected on water, appearing, wavering slightly, then settling again. The question becomes quiet enough to blend into breath. In, slowly. Out, gently. The flamingos do not seek answers. They live within them. Their guidance is not something they follow. It is something they allow. As the night continues, the lake grows darker, smoother, more still. The flock remains, a calm presence within the dark. Nothing is missing. Nothing is expected. In the next part, we will return fully to the lake itself, allowing the water to grow still again, mirroring the calm that is gathered within you. For now, let the question fade into quiet understanding. Let guidance feel gentle, and rest where you are, held by the same calm that guides the flamingos through the night. There is a moment in the night when the lake becomes almost motionless, not frozen, not empty, simply settled. The last small movements fade without notice. Ripples smooth themselves out. Reflections hold steady, then soften, as if the water has decided to rest from showing the world above it. The lake grows still again, returning to a calm that feels deeper than before. The flamingos remain where they are, balanced and quiet. Their bodies barely move now. Breathing is slow. Awareness is gentle, wide, and unforced. Even the smallest adjustments, an eased wing, A subtle shift of weight happens less frequently, as if the night itself is holding them in place. The air feels steady, cool but comfortable, silent but not empty. If you imagine standing here, you might notice how sound seems to travel less. Even distant noises feel softened, absorbed by darkness and water. The lake does not echo, it receives. Stillness spreads outward, not suddenly, but like warmth settling into the body. The shoreline fades further from view. Color dissolves into tone. Pink becomes shadow. Shadow becomes presence. Nothing is lost in this quiet. The lake holds everything it needs without display. Minerals rest beneath the surface. Life drifts slowly in darkness. The flamingos sleep, supported by balance that does not require thought. As you listen, allow your attention to soften in the same way. You do not need to hold on to the images sharply. You can let them blur gently, becoming more like a feeling than a picture. Stillness does not mean nothing is happening. It means everything is happening slowly enough to feel safe. The lake grows still again because it has no reason to move. There's no wind pressing against it, no movement demanding response. It rests because rest is available. If thoughts arise now, let them slow with the water. They do not need to go anywhere. They can remain suspended for a while, then settle on their own. The flamingos remain part of the lake in this moment. Their reflections are faint, barely distinct from the water itself. The boundary between bird and surface feels thin, almost unnecessary. Night holds them easily. As hours pass, time becomes less noticeable. There is no marker for when one moment ends and another begins. The lake remains calm, steady, unchanging in ways that soothe rather than bore. In this stillness, there is nothing to anticipate, nothing to prepare for. The body understands that it is safe to rest deeply. In the next part, we will stay close to the flamingos themselves, observing how they remain at rest through the night, how balance becomes effortless, and awareness drifts gently without pulling them awake. For now, remain with the lake as it grows still again. Let the water hold the quiet, and allow yourself to drift with it into deeper rest. As the lake settles into its deepest quiet, the flamingos rest completely within it, not withdrawn, not absent, simply at ease. They stand as they have through the night, balanced, steady, and untroubled by the passing of hours. Their bodies have found a posture that asks for nothing more. Muscles relax without collapsing. Feathers lie smoothly, holding warmth close. Heads rest gently against backs, curved into shapes that feel familiar and safe. Sleep here is not dramatic. It arrives like a soft blanket laid over awareness, thin enough to let calm perception remain, thick enough to invite deep rest. One eye may close more fully while the other stays faintly aware, but even this awareness is quiet, dimmed, and unstrained. The flamingos do not guard their rest, they trust it. The lake supports this trust by remaining still and shallow, offering a stable surface beneath their feet. Water touches their legs lightly, a constant presence that neither startles nor distracts. Reflections have faded almost entirely now, leaving the birds as silhouettes within shadow. From a distance, it may be hard to tell where one flamingo ends and another begins. Their shapes repeat softly across the dark water, a gentle pattern of standing forms. No movement breaks the rhythm. No sound rises to interrupt the calm. If you imagine being here, you might notice how your own breathing begins to mirror this steadiness. In, slowly, out, evenly. There is no need to adjust it. It finds its own pace. The night continues to hold the flock without effort. Stars shift gradually overhead, unseen by the birds below. Time passes quietly, unmarked by change. The flamingos remain present, resting without needing to sink fully into unconsciousness. This kind of rest feels ancient. It does not depend on comfort as we often imagine it. It depends on balance, on being held by a place that fits. The flamingos are not seeking perfect stillness. They are allowing rest to coexist with gentle awareness. Occasionally, one bird makes a small adjustment. A feather settles. A leg shifts slightly, then locks again into balance. These movements are so minimal they barely register, like a deeper breath taken during sleep, then released. Nothing follows these adjustments. Stillness returns immediately. As you listen, you may feel a similar settling, a sense that there is nothing left to manage. No need to follow the story closely. It can continue on its own, carrying you gently. The flamingos remain at rest, not because they are finished with movement, but because rest itself is part of the rhythm. It prepares without effort. It restores without intention. In the next part, we will reflect on balance itself, how standing, resting, and being held can feel effortless when nothing is forced. For now, stay with the flamingos as they rest. Let their calm posture guide your own, and allow the night to hold you both, quietly and completely. Balance here at the lake does not feel like something that must be achieved. It is something that arrives on its own, once nothing is being forced. The flamingos stand quietly, resting on one leg, their bodies upright and calm. To an observer, this posture might appear delicate, even difficult. But for the birds, it is the opposite. Their bodies settle naturally into this position, guided by structure rather than strain. Muscles relax instead of tightening. Weight distributes itself gently. Stillness becomes stable. This is balance without effort. The lifted leg rests close to the body, conserving warmth. The standing leg locks softly into place, allowing the flamingo to remain upright without constant adjustment. Nothing trembles, nothing struggles. The posture holds itself as if it were remembering how. The lake supports this balance by remaining steady beneath them. Shallow water offers gentle resistance, enough to ground without disturbing. The surface stays calm, reflecting little, asking nothing. Even the air feels balanced, cool, even unchanging. As you imagine this scene, notice how balance here is not an active process. The flamingos are not concentrating on standing. They're simply standing. Awareness drifts lightly, no longer focused on the body, no longer monitoring each movement. Balance becomes background. This kind of ease emerges only when there is trust. Trust in the body's design, trust in the environment, trust in the present moment. The flamingos do not question whether they will remain upright. They rest within the knowing that they already are. If you listen closely, you may feel something similar settling within you. A sense that you do not need to hold yourself together right now. That whatever surface you are resting on is already supporting you. That balance can exist without constant attention. Breathing continues slowly, evenly, without effort. The night deepens, and balance remains unchanged. Time passes without affecting it. The flamingos do not grow tired of standing. Their posture does not demand energy. It preserves it. Occasionally, a bird shifts weight gently, not because balance is lost, but because comfort asks for adjustment. Then stillness returns, complete and steady. There is no moment when balance feels fragile. It feels dependable. This is what balance looks like when it is allowed, rather than maintained, quiet, sustainable, and calm. As the hours move softly toward morning, the flamingos remain at rest, held by their own design and by the lake beneath them. Nothing asks them to move yet. Nothing unsettles them. In the next part, we will begin to dissolve more fully into quiet, allowing shapes to fade, light to dim, and awareness to loosen its hold. For now, remain with balance as it is, unforced, supported, and gently holding you in place without asking you to do anything at all. As the night deepens, color loosens its hold on the world. What once felt vivid now becomes suggestion. The flamingos remain where they are, resting quietly, but their pink feathers no longer stand out clearly against the lake. Instead, they soften into shapes, gentle outlines held by shadow and faint light. Pink becomes memory rather than sight, something you sense even when you can no longer see it. The lake absorbs this change easily. Dark water blends with dark sky, and the boundary between them grows thin. Reflections fade until they are barely there, leaving only the presence of bodies standing calmly within the night. The flamingos do not disappear. They become quieter versions of themselves, resting within the larger darkness. This is not loss, it is rest. The night does not erase what came before. It simply allows it to settle. Shapes remain, but they no longer ask for attention. The eye relaxes when it is no longer required to distinguish details. Awareness softens, spreading outward instead of narrowing in. As you imagine this scene, allow your own thoughts to lose their edges. You do not need to hold on to any image clearly. You can let impressions blur, becoming more like feelings than pictures. The flamingos stand quietly, their silhouettes repeating across the lake. Some are closer, some farther away, but distance matters less now. Everything feels evenly held by darkness. There is no foreground or background, no center or edge. Sound remains minimal. The lake is still. The air is steady. Occasionally, a faint movement, perhaps a subtle shift of balance, passes through the flock, then dissolves immediately back into quiet. Nothing lingers. The night invites this softening without force. It does not hurry the transition. It simply continues being dark, and in doing so, it allows the world to rest from definition. If you notice your breath now, it may feel slower, deeper, easier to forget. Breathing continues whether you attend to it or not, just as the flamingos continue to stand whether they are seen clearly or not. Presence does not depend on visibility. The pink shapes in the dark are still there, even when they fade from view. Their calm remains intact, held by balance and by the lake that supports them. Nothing essential has changed. As hours pass quietly, the darkness deepens further. Shapes soften more. Awareness loosens its grip. The world feels simpler, quieter, and more spacious. In the next part, we will reflect on breathing with the lake itself, how water, air, and resting bodies share a single steady rhythm through the night. For now, Remain with the softened shapes. Let color rest. Let form fade gently. And allow yourself to drift comfortably within the dark, where nothing needs to be seen clearly to be fully present. As the night settles fully, the lake begins to feel like a single, slow breath. Not something you hear, something you sense. The water rests quietly, rising and falling in temperature by degrees too small to notice. The air above it moves gently, barely stirring the surface. Together, they create a rhythm that does not demand attention. It simply continues, steady and calm. The flamingos remain within this rhythm, standing quietly, bodies balanced and at ease. Their breathing is slow now, almost indistinguishable from the movement of the night itself. In and out, without effort, without awareness, just enough to remain present. If you imagine standing here, you might feel this shared breath around you. The lake cools slightly as the night deepens, then steadies. The air settles against skin, not cold, not warm, simply comfortable. Nothing changes quickly enough to require response. Breathing becomes something shared. The water breathes as it releases warmth. The air breathes as it moves softly across the surface. The flamingos breathe as they rest, supported and still. There is no separation between these rhythms. They overlap gently, creating a quiet harmony that fills the space without sound. Even time seems to breathe here, stretching and relaxing, unmarked by moments. As you listen, you may notice your own breath responding naturally. There is no need to control it. You do not need to slow it or deepen it. Simply noticing the calm around you may allow it to settle on its own. In, slowly. Out, softly. The lake does not hold its breath. It does not rush the exhale. It allows each phase to complete itself fully before moving into the next. The flamingos remain balanced within this cycle, unaffected by the passing hours. They do not stir when the air cools slightly more. They do not wake when a faint breeze passes. They trust the rhythm they are part of. This trust feels soothing. If thoughts appear now, imagine them rising and falling with the breath of the lake. They can come forward briefly, then recede, leaving no trace. You do not need to follow them. You can remain with the steady rhythm that continues regardless. The night deepens further. Stars shift slowly overhead. The lake reflects less, becoming darker, smoother. The flamingos remain quiet shapes within the breathing dark. Nothing needs to be adjusted. Breathing with the lake does not require effort because the lake does not try to breathe. It simply is. And in being so, it invites everything around it to settle into the same calm. As the hours move gently toward dawn, this rhythm continues unchanged. It has no destination. It does not lead anywhere else. It is complete as it is. In the next part, we will reflect on how the landscape itself seems to hold those who rest within it, offering a sense of safety and containment through stillness. For now, remain with the breath of the lake. Let it carry your awareness gently, and allow yourself to rest within a rhythm that does not need to be followed, only felt. There is a feeling that arrives when the night grows deep enough, a sense that the land itself is no longer something you stand upon, but something that holds you. The lake rests quietly beneath the stars, its surface smooth and untroubled. The shoreline has softened into shadow, and the distant hills have become gentle outlines against the dark sky. Nothing presses forward. Nothing pulls away. The landscape feels complete, enclosing without confinement. The flamingos remain within this held space, balanced and resting. Their bodies are supported not only by water beneath their feet, but by the stillness around them. Air, water, and darkness work together, creating a calm container where nothing is required. The land does not watch them. It simply receives them. As you imagine this place, notice how different it feels from spaces that demand awareness. Here, attention can relax. There are no edges to monitor, no sounds that require response. The environment feels settled enough to allow rest to deepen naturally. The lake holds warmth slowly released through the night. The air holds moisture gently, carrying faint scents that do not intrude. Even gravity feels kinder here, as if it too has softened its grip. The flamingos respond by remaining exactly as they are. They do not search for shelter. They do not need to. The openness itself feels protective. There is nothing to hide from, nothing to guard against. This sense of being held does not come from walls or boundaries. It comes from steadiness. The landscape offers consistency. It does not change suddenly. It does not surprise. It remains predictable in the quietest way, allowing bodies to rest without vigilance. As you listen, you may notice a similar feeling settling within you, a sense that you do not need to hold yourself upright right now, that whatever surface you are resting on is already doing the work for you. Breathing continues quietly. Awareness drifts without effort. The flamingos remain present, but not alert. They rest within the land's support, trusting it completely. Their silhouettes blend further into darkness, becoming less separate from the place that holds them. If thoughts arise now, you can imagine setting them gently onto the landscape as well. The lake has space. It can carry them without stirring. You do not need to manage them. They can rest where they land. Time passes unnoticed. The night deepens, but nothing shifts in a way that matters. The sense of being held remains constant, reassuring, and calm. This is what the landscape offers when it is allowed to remain undisturbed. Not excitement, not distraction, just quiet presence that supports rest. In the next part, we will allow the story itself to loosen, letting images drift, words soften, and attention fade gently, preparing for sleep. For now, remain within this held space. Let the landscape support you fully, and allow rest to deepen, knowing there is nothing you need to do, and nowhere you need to go. At a certain point, the story no longer needs to continue. Not because it has ended, but because it has settled. The lake remains still beneath the night sky, and the flamingos stand quietly within it, held by darkness and calm. Nothing new enters the scene. Nothing leaves. The shapes, the water, the air all remain as they are, steady and complete. This is where the story begins to loosen. Details no longer ask to be remembered. Images soften, blending into one another like reflections that fade as the water grows darker. The pink of feathers is now only a suggestion. The outlines of bodies are gentle and indistinct. Even the idea of movement feels distant. Words slow. They no longer point or describe. They simply pass through, like a breeze that moves without direction, touching nothing for long. If you notice your attention drifting now, allow it. There is no need to hold the scene together. The lake does not disappear when you stop watching it. The flamingos remain balanced whether they are clearly imagined or not. You are free to let go. Thoughts may arise, but they do not need to connect to anything. They can float briefly, then dissolve, leaving space behind them. The story does not ask you to follow it anymore. It carries itself. The night continues quietly. Stars shift slowly overhead. The lake breathes gently. The flamingos rest, unchanged. Time stretches without shape, without direction. This drifting is not losing focus. It is entering rest. The story has done what it needed to do. It has brought you here, to a place where nothing needs to happen next. Now it can step back, allowing quiet to take over. If words fade, let them fade. If images blur, let them blur. If awareness grows soft and distant, allow that too. There is no need to stay awake for what comes after. The lake will remain. The flamingos will remain. The calm does not depend on attention. As the story drifts away, what remains is sensation rather than thought. A sense of steadiness, of being supported, of not needing to move or decide or remember. Breathing continues on its own. In, out. Nothing else is required. The night holds everything gently, without demand, and you are free to rest within it, just as the flamingos do, balanced, quiet, and untroubled. In the final part, we will let the last reflections dissolve completely, leaving only the calm rhythm of the wild and the invitation to sleep. For now, allow the story to drift. Let the words become distant, and rest where nothing needs to be followed anymore. There is very little left to notice now, and that is exactly how it should be. The lake rests in complete stillness, its surface dark and smooth, holding no reflections that ask to be seen. The flamingos remain where they have been all night, balanced, quiet, and deeply at ease. Their shapes have softened into the darkness, no longer distinct, no longer separate from the place that holds them. Nothing moves in a way that matters. Nothing changes enough to be named. The wild has settled into its most gentle rhythm, the one that carries life forward without drawing attention to itself. Water rests, air rests, bodies rest. Even time seems to have loosened its grip, allowing moments to stretch and dissolve without sequence. If you are still listening, you do not need to listen closely. The story is no longer unfolding. It is simply breathing, slow and even, like the lake beneath the stars. The flamingos do not know they are at rest. They do not mark this moment as special. They simply are. And in that being, everything feels complete. There is no lesson to remember, no image to hold on to. What remains is a quiet understanding that does not require words. That rest is not something you reach, but something you allow when nothing resists it. The wild teaches this softly. It flows, it settles, it continues. You do not need to follow it anymore. Your breath can remain just as it is. Your body can remain just as it is. Supported, held, balanced without effort. There's nothing left to adjust, nothing left to release deliberately. If thoughts pass through now, they can pass through without shape, like ripples that never quite form. They do not need meaning. They do not need resolution. The lake holds the night easily. The night holds the flamingos. and the wild holds the rhythm that carries everything gently onward. There is nowhere else to go. No moment after this one that needs attention, only rest. And as the story fades completely into quiet, we leave you with the final words, offered not as an ending, but as a continuation. Everything flows through the wild. Sleep in that motion. Nothing more is needed.